So right now, obviously people are dealing with the sadness and the grief of what happened at the DC airport where a commercial jet collided with a Blackhawk helicopter and caused devastation. They were midair, they collided towards each other, there was explosion, caught on camera. It was devastating. The lives that were lost on the commercial airliner and the people in the helicopter. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers with the families, our hearts are with them. But now people are wondering what exactly happened. How did a commercial airliner and a military helicopter collide itself together without any awareness? How is this possible? How did this happen? So, the New York Post says how air safety failures and last minute mistakes set American airliners jet Blackhawk chopper on deadly DC collision course. Major air safety failures and last minute mistakes caused Thursday night's mid air collision over the Potomac River and left 67 people dead, according to expert observers and officials. Late Wednesday, American Airlines Flight 5342 from Wichita, Kansas, crashed into an Army UH 60 Blackhawk helicopter just 400 feet above the historic Washington, D.C. waterway. The Bombardier CRJ 700 regional jet with 60 passengers and 4 crew on board exploded in a fireball and broke into 3 pieces as it approached Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, igniting the night sky with the resembled shooting stars or white flares to eyewitnesses on the ground. It is the deadliest air disaster in U.S. since 2001 and the first crash of an American airliner in nearly 15 years. The Post can reveal that grave lapses and miscommunications in one of the most crowded and complex patches of the sky in the U.S. are likely to blame. An air traffic controller was doing the job of 2 staffers at the same time of the crash. Following years of staffing shortages and reports on burnout and high stress among Federal Aviation Administration employees, according to radio transmissions from Wednesday night, the controller warned the chopper that it was getting too close to the CRJ 700 passenger jet, and the experienced helicopter pilot acknowledged. However, experts believe the helicopter pilot maneuvered to avoid the wrong plane, a jet of the same model that was taking off farther away, and never saw the American airliner's flight until it was too late. So, I've heard a lot of different aspects to this story, and you're going to see later on there's what the administration, what Trump had to say about it. I've heard so many different aspects from, there was miscommunication, there was the fault of the airliner, there was the fault of the people within the airport, the air traffic controllers. What really, I think it's really significant is the fact that there's so much mismanagement in this situation. The fact that the air traffic controllers are short and short staffed, that they couldn't monitor correctly these 2 incoming airliners, the airliner and the helicopter. They couldn't respond properly to this, and there was miscommunication because the air traffic controller was doing 2 jobs at once. And you're talking about one of the busiest airports in America. This is Washington, D.C. This ain't some rando lowbrow airport in Nebraska. You're talking about Washington, D.C., where people are boarding the planes, passengers, business personnel, all people of all walks of life come down to this airport. And you have short staff to the point that they're trying to communicate to so many different individuals that there's going to be miscommunication. So it just seems like this is some sort of kind of corporate level situation that if they had more people, if they had proper trained people within the air traffic control position, that maybe this could have been avoided. Don't know. We won't know until they actually investigate. But that's my observation. The Blackhawk helicopter, which had a crew of 3, had taken off from nearby Langley, Virginia, and was apparently flying too high at about 400 feet when it collided with the American Airlines jet, which was rapidly descending after it was cleared for landing, experts say. So the helicopter was flying too high. And then they were the air traffic controller, while telling the helicopter this, was telling the American Airlines jet that they were clear for landing. So again, you're talking about one of the busiest airports in the country. And the fact that they only had one person to do these many jobs, obviously there's going to be confusion. One person cannot dictate every single flight that comes in and out of Washington, D.C. And the fact that the airport and the people running the airport don't have enough qualified people to do this, it's not really a case of DEI. It's a case of the fact that they've subsequently dissolved their workforce. That one person had to do multiple jobs at once, and there was miscommunication to the point that the helicopter and the airline jet collided. Again, this is just my observation of this. Just reading the article. However, because of close quarters around Reagan National, there was just 50 feet separating between the maximum allowance altitude for helicopters and the minimum altitude for planes on the particular landing path, leaving most no room for error, former DC-based American Airlines pilot John Wright said. Chilling audio from air traffic control captured the moment the flight's safety agency reported the horrific mid-air crash. Tower, did you see that? One air traffic controller asked, referring to the moment of impact. Crash, crash, crash. There is an alert 3, a dispatcher can be heard saying on the audio. Both the helicopter and the plane crashed into the river, said a third. So there's a lot of questions to this. Like I said, we won't know for sure until they actually investigate it. But it just seems like to me there's so much confusion, so much miscommunication, because one, I don't even know why there's a Blackhawk helicopter in a airport that obviously is going to have passenger jets coming in and out. I don't know why that's the case. I don't know why they chose to be there. And also, you're dealing with one of the largest airports in Washington, D.C. Why don't you have the staff? Why don't you hire more people and train them responsibly in result of this, so we can prevent these incidences? It just seems like when you follow the situation, it goes back to the negligence on the corporate side. It goes down to the negligence of whoever's running the airport, of the air traffic controllers, the negligence of the people in the military, the Blackhawk helicopter. Why are they not alerting that, hey, a passenger jet is coming in to land? Why are they not alerted? Why were they at that airport? No one really knows. The horrific collision was captured by an Earth cam perched atop the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts near the river's edge, pointing south toward the airport beyond the Lincoln Memorial. As the investigation continues, the devastated victim's family mourn the loss of their loved ones. Questions are now being raised about how the disaster could have happened. So, everything's still up in the air. We still don't know exactly what caused this, but considering just the confusion within the article, that the air traffic controller was doing multiple tasks at once, and there wasn't enough staffing, there wasn't enough people to deal with the amount of traffic going through this airport. Again, you're talking about one of the largest airports in the United States. Why wasn't there more people at hand to respond to this? That's just my 2 cents of it. We'll find out more later on as this goes on. We'll go back to and cover it as it develops. But to me, it just sounds like this is just malpractice. This is going back to kind of the incompetency of whoever was running the airport, how they were trying to manage everything at once with very few people, and it just turned out disastrously. And we've seen this before with many other disasters, particularly in the transport industry. So, Chief Nerd says new footage obtained by CNN shows the moments leading up to the crash between the American Airlines flight and the Blackhawk helicopter in Washington, D.C. So let's take a look just to see what exactly happened.
These videos obtained exclusively by CNN show previously unseen angles of the collision between an American Airlines flight and a US Army Blackhawk helicopter. In the first video, the Blackhawk can be seen flying at speed over the Potomac from the left side of the screen. The American Airlines plane can be seen flying towards the airport before the two collide, causing a mid-air explosion and fall into the river.
So, why would, again, this is where it gets a little confusing. If the Blackhawk helicopter is in the area, the plane is being told it's going to land, and the air traffic controller gave them clearance, which even that's a bit confusing. Why wasn't the Blackhawk helicopter instead going towards the airliner? Why are they not going the other direction? Yeah, there's so many questions to this. There's so many questions to this. It makes it absurd, insanity to itself. And how exactly the fact that both at the same time did not see each other. How the jet airliner that was told to land did not see the helicopter, and the helicopter apparently did not see the jet. It's just baffling. And of course, only having one person at the air traffic controller monitoring all this, it just adds more to the situation. But let's see this again, because this is
These videos obtained exclusively by CNN show previously unseen angles of the collision between an American Airlines flight and a US Army Blackhawk helicopter. In the first video, the Blackhawk can be seen flying at speed over the Potomac from the left side of the screen.
There it is.
The American Airlines plane can be seen flying towards the airport before the two collide, causing a mid-air explosion and fall into the river. In the second video, you can see the Army helicopter and American Airlines plane travel toward each other. After the collision and subsequent explosion.
So, by the looks of the second video, it looks like the plane's coming down this way, the helicopter's coming this way. Would you not think that the two would see each other? Would you not think that the helicopter would move away? Or maybe the jet would attempt to? Obviously, the jet would be harder to move away from that situation because it's a fairly huge vessel. It's not going to be able to just drift off to the left-hand side. But when they see each other, because obviously the air traffic controller messed up or miscommunicated. So don't you think the two would have saw each other? Just looking at that again, you can see it right there. You can see.
In the second video, you can see the Army helicopter and American Airlines plane travel toward each other. After the collision and subsequent explosion, the airliner can be seen spinning into the water, and the Blackhawk is also seen falling into the water.
Jeez. So, I don't know what really to make of this. It feels like it's just one of those situations. Again, we've seen this before with how many transportation accidents. And obviously there's going to need to be a lot more, as they investigate, there's going to be a lot more information hopefully being released, and we'll try to keep on top of this as much as possible as it develops. But it just seems like it's one of those instances, yet again, where as we look into this, as we look into the situation, the more and more we find out, the more and more relates to just the negligence of corporations that are cutting back, labor, cutting back on resources, cutting back on all this. And it's causing devastation because they don't have the proper materials or proper resourcing or the amount of people required to facilitate an airport like this. They don't have enough air traffic controllers, apparently. They had one person doing multiple jobs. They're running around trying to figure out, okay, there's a helicopter here, there's jets coming in and out, so we got to figure out how to coordinate all this. And obviously, it's human reaction. They're not going to be able to monitor every single second of what happens in the air. But yet you also have the helicopter and the jet at an angle like this. You don't think they would have saw each other? You don't think the helicopter would have swerved away? That's just my take of it. That's just my take of it. Again, I'm not a pilot, but you would think if they were like this, if the helicopter was going this way, the jet's going this way, one of them would have saw each other and would have attempted to try to diverge. Just by the look at that video there. So, this is an article from ABC7 Eyewitness News in New York. And the reason I got this out is because the pilot for their news chopper mentioned about this crash. This is the trained pilot of a chopper, of a helicopter. He says News Chopper 7 pilot Don Del Giorno discusses near deadly mid-air collision in D.C. He says it's not unusual for helicopters to operate near Ronald Reagan National Airport, and military and law enforcement personnel are constantly present over the Potomac River. According to Del Giorno, the commercial airplane might have been low enough in altitude that the TCAS system wouldn't alert the pilot because it didn't want to give false alarms to planes on the ground, giving them little time to react. So, it just seems like there's more and more misconfusion on this. Like, now they're saying the commercial plane may have been too low. But again, why was the Blackhawk helicopter there? Why did they not see the jet? Where was the communication to say, hey, there's an incoming plane coming down? We just gave them clearance. I don't know why. There's just so much to this. So much to this. It wouldn't alert the public because they didn't want to get false planes. Meanwhile, some may concern that an aircraft traffic controller shortage may have played a role in the collision. Del Giorno cautions that it's too early to say this played a factor. Back at home, News Copter 7 regularly operates near the area airports in the tri-state area. In conversation with air officials, Del Giorno says that they will request a location and the controller will confirm if there's any aircraft in the air, asking a question along the lines of, do you have visual contact of that airplane? If the flight is approved to proceed, the controller will instruct the helicopter pilot to maintain visual separation at the point the helicopter is responsible for avoiding the other air traffic. So, if there's a Blackhawk helicopter at this airport, they know that there's passenger jets coming in and out of the airport. It sounds like it's their responsibility. The helicopter. It's part of the responsibility of the United States military, the Blackhawk helicopter, to deal with this. To make sure that they gave room to the passenger jets coming in and out, and they have contact with the air traffic controller, that they have a visual, so that they wouldn't collide. But apparently, there was no contact, there was no information, barely a response from the helicopters, and the two collided. So here's another person that also weighed in on this, Captain Sully Sullenberger. You may remember the guy who landed on the Hudson River, famously turned into a movie by Tom Hanks. So he reacts to this, and he goes on to Good Morning America. It says Sullenberger, who is known for being at the controls for the miracle landing on the Hudson River in 2009, shares his thoughts on the commercial jet helicopter crash. So he knows a thing or two about dealing in a situation where you're flying a plane and have to think accordingly. And here's what he said about this.
Joining us now is the former airline pilot, well known for being at the controls for the miracle landing on the Hudson River, Sully Sullenberger, who is also the former ambassador of the U.S. to the International Civil Aviation Organization. Ambassador, thank you for joining us this morning. I always enjoy seeing you, but I wish this time it was under different circumstances. I know that you have been following, you've been hearing the reports. Can you just give us your perspective on what you believe happened?
We don't know yet. The investigation may take a year, but the NTSB investigators will find the probable cause and the contributing factors. We will learn from it, and we will do what we always do after an accident, learn from it and improve our system, change for the better. What seems apparent from the air traffic control communications is that the airplanes were able to see each other, at least one was able to see the other, and the air traffic controller was able to relieve himself of the requirement to have him separate the airplanes, and the pilots would have to separate from each other visually by identifying the other aircraft and staying a safe distance away. And obviously at some point, separation was tragically lost.
It was, and given...
So it sounds like what he's saying there is everybody saw each other. The helicopter would have saw the plane in that angle. The plane would have saw the helicopter, and the air traffic controller is supposed to maintain to make sure that everyone's coming in safely. And all three of them mistakenly did not see each other, or something happened, and it collided, and the accident occurred. So again, this is mind-boggling, because we saw in the video there, if the helicopter's going this way, coming from the left, so it's coming this way, the plane's coming down towards for landing this way, you would think one of them would have saw each other and communicate with each other, or the air traffic controller would chime in and say, hey, you in the helicopter, you got to move away. Hey, in the passenger jet, there's a helicopter nearby. Swerve to the other side. You'd think that would be the case. You'd think that would be the coordinates of this. But none of that happened. None of it. It sounds like an absolute mess. An absolute mess.
Given your decades of flying experience, you know, folks are just scratching their head and they're saying, Sully, how could something like this happen? How could it happen?
Well, we have to realize how many things have to go right every day for us to have this now ultra-safe transportation industry. You know, we have in this country, 10,000 flights a day, 10.2 million flights a year, and we operate them all safely. But it's hard. It's hard to have the diligence and the dedication to adhere to best practices on every minute of every hour of every day, every week, every month, every year for a decades-long aviation career. That's what's required. And any lapse could potentially be fatal, even though we have a lot of safety layers in there. If all the dominoes line up in the wrong way, we can have, on rare occasions, a catastrophic event. And it's important to know that given enough time, given enough flights, given enough flight hours, eventually whatever can happen will happen unless we work very hard to prevent every incident from turning into an accident.
So again, that's why I question the negligence, the corporate negligence of the airport, the airliner, the Blackhawk helicopter, the U.S. military that was operating apparently in this airport for some reason, and the negligence of the airline industry. How many times have we seen reports of a Boeing plane exploding, or the door flies off because they're missing parts, because something wasn't screwed on tight, because they cut back on regulations, they cut back on the labor force, and they sold it off to some equity firm to manufacture planes overseas that don't have the safety qualifications to fly up in the air. Or to bring the DEI aspect, they bring in pilots that are not qualified to be pilots. And it is a troublesome job. It is a difficult position to be in, to fly a plane, to be responsible for that many people in the air, to land, to go off and land safely from point A to point B. That's why you need specially trained people to do that. But it just seems like every single instance relates back to corporate negligence because they don't want to deal with the responsibility of training people or hiring correct people or making sure things are secure, things are safety protocols are in effect. They just want the profits. They want the short-term profits. Hey, let's cut back on labor. Let's have one guy responsible for all the air traffic control. One guy. That's what it seems like to me. That's what it seems like to me. Again, we won't know until we actually have an investigation. And God only knows what will happen after that. But it just seems like everything dominoes from the top down. That the corporate negligence is why there was one guy at the air traffic controller who was trying to, manage all these different aircraft carriers. Obviously, he's stressed out. Obviously, he can't handle it. He's in panic mode. The helicopter doesn't see the plane, and all hell breaks loose. That's what it sounds like to me, and that's what it sounds like Captain Sully is saying here. The guy who landed on the Hudson River. That it comes from the top down. And that's what it seems like to me. That's what it seems like to me in that situation. Because of just how, just even looking at the video. Again, you saw the helicopter there. You saw the plane coming down this way. You think they would have saw each other. You think that the air traffic control, someone there would have saw something and find a way to maneuver one person or do some sort of protocol to at least try to alleviate this. But nothing really happened. Nothing really happened. They both hit each other, exploded, and unfortunately, we lost many, many lives on that passenger jet and the people in the in the helicopter. And this is just another tack, another statistic on the horrible transportation mess, unfortunately, in America. Again, how many times have you seen reports of airplanes that losing parts and will you trust a Boeing jet? Or even the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, or just the regular maintenance. That's why it's so important to invest into your own country. Take that money, take all the money you get from taxes and invest to make sure you have well-equipped planes. Make sure your trains are on the tracks. Make sure your roads are up to date. Because the horrible infrastructure is crumbling so badly. And the management of this infrastructure is failing so horribly that's causing lives. It's costing the lives of innocent people that were just going to a figure skating event. And this didn't need to happen. It could have been avoided. I'm not sure if it'd be 100% avoided, but there could have been ways to try to prevent it. It just didn't seem like it was happening.